As graduate students working in computational sciences, we are often assigned accounts on workstations that we can use for running our simulations. So, because we need to, log in every day to these workstations, we would probably want the login process to be as smooth as possible. And for that reason, I'm going to uh, tell you a few basic tips about how you can set up that login process on your system. So the entire video will cover these three steps. The first is just for the first step is just using your assigned user and IP address to log in. That is how you normally do, and you would be doing it right now. Then we'll see how we can make the process slightly simpler by writing down all the information in a configuration file so that you don't have to remember the IP address every time that you log in. And finally, in step 3, we'll make it even simpler by making the login passwordless. We'll do that by generating a pair of SSH keys that will let you log in to the remote server without entering any password. So let us look at how we are going to do this step by step. The step 1 is the process that most of us usually follow, in which we just use the username that's been assigned to us and also the IP address to log into the system. This is the most simplest way of logging in using SSH. So the command that we use for this is we type in SSH followed by the username that has been, or the user account that has been given to us on the workstation. That's the Badal VM for me, @ the IP address of the workstation or the remote server or your host or whatever you want to call it, and then it asks me for the password, which I enter, and then I'm into the system. So let's exit it for now. And so next time when I have to log in, I have to remember this IP address, and it's not that efficient. So let us see how we can set up a configuration file to do this, to make it slightly easier. So there is a folder which is hidden on your home directory. It's hidden because it starts with a dot, so it's on your home directory. It's called .ssh. So you can go to that folder or directory and edit a file called config. So let's edit this. I'm editing using Vim. You can use any other text editor to do this. So here you specify the host. Your host is the remote server that you're trying to log in, and you can give it any name that you want. It can be arbitrary. I have named it DPE Badal, and then you write your host name, which is the IP address that we entered earlier, followed by your username on that remote machine, which is Badal VM. So now that I've entered it, I can save it and exit, and now I can SSH into the remote server by just entering the host that I had given, the name that I had selected, which was DP Badal. So instead of, right now I'm not entering any IP address, I just wrote SSH DP Badal and then I'm entering the password, and again I'm into the system. So now let's go to step 3 and make it even more easier. We'll set up SSH keys, and so let me tell you briefly what this is. So when I say login using SSH keys, you can think of it as a key and a lock. So when you generate SSH keys, it is generated in a pair, so you get two keys. One is a public key, the other is a private key. You can think of the public key as a lock and the private key as your normal key. So when you generate two keys on your system, you copy the public key to the remote server that you want to log into. So it's basically like using a lock to lock up the remote server that you want to log into, and the private key is always with you. So whenever you log in, the system is going to take your private key and use that to open up the lock, which was the public key on your remote server. So the system is going to take care of that. and that is how you log in with SSH keys. So let's see how we do this. So the step 3 is about this. Let's go ahead. So in order to, so what I'm showing is that right now when you don't have it set up, you need to enter the password every time, but it is inconvenient to enter it every time because you'll be using it every day for running simulations. You don't want to enter the password every time, but you also want it to be secure, so you don't want to remove the password. So for that we do this. So there's a command ssh key gen, which generates, so we are specifying that we want an encryption of the RSA type. We want the size to be 4096 bytes, and we want the file name and the location of the key which will be generated as ID underscore RSA underscore Badal, let's call it that. So it generates, it asks for a passphrase. I've decided not to use a passphrase because then I would have to remember that. So you can skip that, it doesn't really cause much security issues. And your key is generated, the pair of keys are generated. This is just a random art image which represents your key. You don't have to worry about that. Your keys are generated and they are stored in that hidden .ssh directory that we saw earlier. So you can just list the files, and there you see this is your public key, which you need to copy to the system, remote system, and the other one is your private key, which you will keep with yourself. So now that these keys are generated, the next step is to copy the public key, which you can imagine as the lock that you are putting on your remote server. So you can copy this to the remote server using another command called ssh copy id, and you use that to copy this public key to dp Badal, which is the remote server. So I need to enter the password because the keys have not been set up yet. I need to enter the password in order to copy the public key from my laptop to the remote server, and it says that the key has been copied. Now there's another change to the config file that I have to make. Once I have copied the keys, I just want to specify the file or the key that I am going to use when I am trying to log into this system. So the identity file is basically the key which is hidden, my private key which is there in this hidden folder .ssh. I just write that and save it, and now when I do ssh dp Badal, I don't have to do anything. It gets logged in, and it does get logged in very securely, even though I'm not entering any password. So overall, now the process is quite simple. Now you can run your simulations every day, and you just need to remember very few things, basically just the name that you have given to your remote server in order to log into the system securely. So I hope it will be useful to you guys. Thank you for watching.